Las Vegas says that they are the third most probable team to win the 2025 ring, but the NBA is an increasingly unpredictable league.
Scored to Hart. Josh Hart, a three-pointer. Puts it in! Josh Hart, some clutch three-pointers.
The New York Knicks have completed a dream offseason after the best season in their recent history. It seems that this franchise that has been suffering for decades is finally getting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, the last playoff showed us that nothing is what it seems. Yes, the Knicks have a dream starting five, but like all NBA teams, they also have weaknesses. In one of the rosters that has changed the most over the last few weeks, chemistry is going to be a key factor. But in the emerging Eastern Conference, which is increasingly loaded with talent, the Knicks are going to have to go all out if they want to dominate. How far can a roster like theirs take them? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Bottom line, how good are the New York Knicks? Leon Rose may have made a lot of moves this summer, bringing in and sending out names of players who can be vital pieces to any contender. But there is no doubt in my mind that the best front office move has been Jaylen Brunson's new contract. The Knicks have secured the future of a guard who has already proven to be an elite offensive juggernaut for less than his price. Jaylen is that player who handles the pace of the game, the player who is capable of running an entire offense with the ball in his hands, and above all, that player who has to step up in the big moments.
Wasting time, Brunson floats it in!
Let's be honest, there is no bigger factor for the Knicks' success than Jaylen Brunson. If the guard is able to maintain his level from last year, the Knicks have a real chance to win the Eastern Conference. But the puzzle around him also has to fit. And the truth is that his backcourt partner from last season is no longer around. Another key factor that will determine the Knicks' chances of success is the players that surround Brunson. The reality is that players like Karl Anthony Towns or Mikal Bridges being a secondary is a luxury for any franchise in the league. In fact, Mikal comes from being the Nets' primary offensive option, even though his usage on the Knicks will probably decline. But Towns, a high-volume shooter and scorer who possesses a continuous threat on the perimeter, seems like a perfect fit for the New York offense. It is true that the Dominican center does not offer the toughness and physicality of Hartenstein, but the huge leap between the offensive skills of both players makes it worth it. Although, of course, we must not forget the playoff matchups. In a more than likely series against the Philadelphia 76ers, Cat will be in the role of Joel Embiid's stopper, which seems very unlikely to happen. But at the same time, the perimeter threat of Cat would force an elite rim protector like Joel to step away from the paint. Another tremendously important factor is defense. New York has the right coach. Tom Thibodeau has been a menace for opposing stars for his entire career. An elite coach who has built some of the best fortresses of the last decade.
Up ahead, DiVincenzo outracing everyone.
In addition, Tibbs has demonstrated an uncanny ability to translate his skills to an ever-changing game of modern basketball. His adaptability to the fast-paced game has been truly incredible. But if one thing is clear, it is that the Knicks are going to have a clear defensive identity that will characterize them. New York was dead last in pace last season. Their basketball is played in the backcourt because of their ability to avoid transition offense, and their defensive half-court is really terrible for any offensive system. Josh Hart and OG Anunoby are two players who like to play above their size. They are players who are capable of getting bigger against their matchup. The definition of versatility, they can switch on virtually any screen without being considered a mismatch. And in the heavy dependent pick and roll offense that exists in the NBA, this is a differentiating factor. In addition, Bridges is another player of enormous length who is able to cover a lot of different profiles. These three tools in the starting five make the Knicks' defense one of the best in the league. Another plus for New York's defense is rebounding. It may seem like a minor factor, but it is not. The Knicks led the NBA in offensive rebounding percentage last season at 33.3%, and they were 6th in the entire league in defensive rebound percentage at 72.9%. Those extra possessions were one of the key factors to the Knicks being able to defeat Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs last year. In fact, Those second chance points were used to win games in clutch moments like in Game 2. Josh Hart is probably the best rebounding guard in the league, and players like OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges also stand out in this aspect because of their length. However, one of the biggest factors that will affect the Knicks' success is their health. Last season, OG Anunoby had problems during the entire regular season, and they reappeared during the playoffs. Plus, of course, the prolonged absence of Julius Randle. But the reality is that the way Tibbs builds rotations can end up being detrimental. We all know the coach is not a fan of the depths of the bench. In fact, in the playoffs, his rotations tend to be extremely short. Even though the Knicks have managed to build one of the best starting fives in the league, their bench depth seems limited. Miles McBride is going to have a very important role this season off the bench, and Mitchell Robinson and Precious Achiuwa will provide the size New York needs when resisting Cat and OG. But the truth is that the Knicks bench doesn't have much else. The signing of Cameron Payne doesn't offer a truly playable guard for the playoffs, and rookie Pacome Dadier may be one of Tibbs' answers to get some minutes off the bench.
Oh, another another one as it goes right.
So, this lack of balance between starter and bench talent can lead to some rotation problems. However, this seems to be the trendy system for building winning teams. Last summer, franchises like the Boston Celtics, Milwaukee Bucks, or Phoenix Suns made similar moves in which they sacrificed part of their bench for stronger starting five. And although in two of those cases the results were not good, Boston did win the chip. The new CBA and the presence of the first and second apron have changed the game. It is very difficult to maintain a core that includes quality rotation players while maintaining an elite starting five. It's something we've seen hit franchises like the Denver Nuggets hard over the past 2 summers. But at the same time, this strategy seems to be the right approach if you don't have a team with multiple young pieces and rookie scales like the Thunder now or the Timberwolves 2 years ago. But what is certain is that the Knicks don't have much room to maneuver. These moves that have served to increase their roster ceiling have cost assets. The first rounds of 2027, 2028, and 2029 are no longer owned by the Knicks. However, they do own the 2025 protected picks from Detroit and Washington, which could be useful to find a reliable bench player. Now, what are the aspirations of this team? What should we expect from New York? How good is this team? Well, they are a very well-built roster. Leon Rose has managed to build a culture thanks to an old-school coach with a very clear identity, and he's given him everything he's asked for. The arrival of 2 all-star talents in Bridges and Cat at a good price has also served to solve the potential problem that could originate with Randle, who would have to change his style of play to adapt to the new needs of the team.
This is where they've been like stuck in mud. Randle goes inside and throws it down.
So, the only aspirations that have to exist for the Knicks are a championship. The competition in the East is getting tougher. The Boston Celtics have kept their core largely intact. The Sixers have achieved a best-case scenario of an offseason in which there was going to be a lot of work, getting, of course, Paul George. The Bucks are hungry for revenge and have one of the most differential players in the league on their roster. And besides, teams like Indiana and Orlando have already proved that despite their youth, they were ready to compete with everyone. Honorable mention to Cleveland too, which also has the youth to star in a breakout season, but the truth is that the conference looks very stacked right now. However, New York has enough talent to beat any of these teams in a 7-game series, and that is the only goal that exists right now in the locker room. The Knicks today can only aspire to win the NBA, and anything less than reaching for the conference finals should be considered a failure. How far do you think New York can get this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're always breaking down the biggest stories and trends in the NBA, and you won't want to miss our future videos. And hey, while you're at it, smash that bell icon too. That way you'll be notified as soon as we drop new content. Trust me, with how quickly things change in the NBA, you'll want to stay up to date.